and welcome to Expected Own Goals, GMs Move Teams and Bring Their Player Crush With Them edition. I am your host, Eric Morgan.
I'm Evan Davis. I don't know where we start here. At the time of recording, less than 2 hours removed from Jenna Nighswonger apparently going to Arsenal. So that's the fresh topic.
Let's talk about the newest visa recipient, Jenna Nighswonger, going to Arsenal. What is your immediate reaction to it?
The hell? Let me take it from an Arsenal perspective first. You now have to choose two of the following three players for your starting 11. Katie McCabe, Caitlin Ford, and Jenna Nighswonger. And figure out how to balance an entire left side of your field between those three players, none of whom really are interested in all that much defending. For all of Katie McCabe's fuckery, the thing that makes McCabe special is as an attacking fullback that overlaps when Ford wants to cut inside. Now you've got Nighswonger. What do you do there? Do you bench Ford and play Nighswonger or McCabe a little bit higher up the field? I guess that's a way to go about it. It's just an interesting tactical balance that Renee Slegers now has to figure out. Mm-hmm. And it feels like, well, you've already got Katie McCabe. Why did you need Jenna Nighswonger?
I think Nighswonger's probably a better athlete.
Maybe.
Probably a better technical deliverer of the ball. None of that's such an improvement on what is currently present to justify the semi-upset you're going to create in your own locker room over that logjam.
Yeah, potential upset. Ford went down and was pulled in the first half for an injury in the game against Chelsea over the weekend.
Yeah, but that's not why you make this signing. Yeah. Do you think Jenna Nighswonger has a chance at playing an attacking role, not as a fullback?
Again, where's the room for her based on what they already got? Do you see her as an attacking midfielder over the likes of Mariona Caldente? That makes no sense to me. Do you see her as a progressive central mid over the likes of Leah Valti or Kyra Cooney-Cross? That doesn't make much sense to me either.
Those are not impossibilities. They are just things that we have not seen from Jenna Nighswonger at a professional level yet.
With any kind of consistency, certainly.
Yeah, with any kind of consistency. I think the money's a little low if I'm Gotham.
But also, is it okay, she's young and she's an Olympic gold medalist, but she had a down year in 2024 and she's only got a year left on her contract and she's a fullback. Were you ever really going to get more than $100K for her right now?
You might be dead on with that. It seemed like she was falling out of favor in Gotham, and certainly by the time the playoffs rolled around, had fallen out of favor. For her sake, I understand moving on. I understand Gotham's potential desire to move her on. The dust has not settled as far as Gotham is concerned. It's really hard to give a grade on this just yet, but other than to say, to me, it felt like a hair low given the reputation. But Arsenal has an analytics team. Arsenal's probably not going to overpay. I think Nighswonger probably wanted a change of scenery to begin with, and this is a change of scenery and a new challenge. And I think the WSL is a lot less likely to expose week in, week out Jenna Nighswonger's major
defensive deficiencies.
I was going to say defensive frailties, but deficiencies is fine too. It's kind of akin to Carson Pickett coming off the bench for Orlando. It's just they've just added one more thing that when you are trying to break a game open, you can throw on the field. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how Nighswonger's used a lot, as this sort of super sub when Arsenal is trying to close games out.
Yeah, it's very possible. And again, they're not paying a whole lot of money for her. And if Ford is injured, then it sort of solves all of these positional questions anyway, because you just play her and McCabe together while Ford rehabs. And we still don't know the extent of Ford's injury. That just might end up being the problem to solve. And also, when you say earlier, you don't make this signing because of an injury. Well, Ford's not getting any younger. She's past 30. McCabe also, McCabe turns 30 in September. And this is a one-year deal, unless they sign her to an extension. It might have just been a soft test run for a player who wanted a different environment and for a price that wouldn't break Arsenal's bank. Not that they have a bank to break. The bank is so huge. But for Gotham, what the fuck is going on?
I think we're just dealing with some classic Galacticos shit.
You've been saying that from the very beginning, that it's a personality clash. And Lynn Biondolo repeated a lot of what she said at her unveiling in Seattle, which is it just wasn't a fit on or off the field anymore. couldn't or wouldn't or refused to elaborate on exactly what that meant. It doesn't quell the questions about what may have changed between the title campaign and this one. And if it really is a bunch of Galacticos being annoyed that they aren't being showered with laurels, or is it just one? Does it involve Crystal Dunn? Does it go past the Galacticos? Is this an Amoros problem and it doesn't have anything to do with the players? We can't answer any of those questions.
Oh, when I say Galacticos, by the way, I mean the entire apparatus, not just players. I mean, like, the culture that happens when a team is concerned with bringing in superstars, and a lot of them. That is a bigger challenge for coaching. It is a bigger challenge for a front office to sort of keep all of these egos in check.
Yeah, maybe, but that just still feels like speculation to me. I don't know if there's enough evidence to really say that there's weight to that explanation yet.
I think the thing that this does do is clear a path for Crystal Dunn left back. If she decides to stay,
that's a big if.
This does open up a position, or at least create space for Crystal Dunn to potentially grab minutes in this system.
Braninia or Mandy Freeman want to play on the left, they can do so now. This feels like Gotham needed to shed money. That's what this feels like.
You feel like this is a salary dump? She can't be on a lot of money. She's still on a rookie contract.
I think that it might be less about dumping her salary and getting $100K in allocation money into the bank.
Okay.
You know, which can be used to maybe pay down some of those salaries that are going up in year 2.
This just feels like a particularly inefficient way to raise $100K. I don't have Gotham's books in front of me.
But also, like, what other assets could they have tried to move who wanted to move?
That's $1 million question right there.
Yeah. Nighswonger might have been open to a move because she felt like she was falling out of favor and they needed to get some money into the bank.
It's entirely possible Emma Hayes was very much in favor of a move like this for her. And that would be important.
You now have a left back question you need to answer. Yeah, you say maybe it opens up room for Dunn, but Dunn doesn't seem like she is particularly interested in sticking around. You could ask one of Jess Carter, Mandy Freeman, or Braninia to play on the left, but all three of those players, or when they're playing out wide, are more comfortable on the right. So now they have to flip the script in their brains and figure out how to be a left back. It's not the end of the world to figure that out, but that's still something you got to deal with and figure out which of those three is right for the left back spot. Or you got to go out and spend money to get another left back, which you didn't have to spend if you had just kept Nighswonger. So all of this just doesn't make a lot of sense for Gotham in my mind.
Nighswonger was basically a neutral player last year.
Yeah.
And I think to go replace Nighswonger's output, if her true talent is somewhere between her rookie season and last season, is expensive. That will not be like a bargain basement move you can go make if they add. Last season, we felt like Gotham was just assembling this invincible bastion, and this offseason, we're figuring out how much of that is even going to stick around. It felt like they were building a team that could potentially compete for multiple seasons.
Yeah.
And this Gotham team is going to look really different than last year's team. I don't think they're going to be bad. I mean, I still think with like Rose Lavelle and Emily Sonnet and Jess Carter and Ann-Katrin Berger, they have a lot of really, and Ella Stevens, like they have a lot of really good pieces. And now with Gabby Portillo, like this is not a team that I think is falling out of a playoff spot just yet. But I am with you. I am a little baffled.
My working theory is that Yael Averbuch certainly doesn't sell herself as a dummy with only short-termism in place. And my theory is that their long-term sustainability vision really was built around Crystal Dunn's staying healthy and being on the field and being productive. And when that fell apart, all of a sudden, they had a bunch of players who took pay cuts in year 1 of their deals in order to bring themselves within salary restrictions. And then all of those players are going to get pay bumps. Yael Averbuch was all of a sudden caught trying to figure out how you replace a bunch of production that just went out the door and without any money to do it. Between the $400K you get for Yasmin Ryan and the $100K here, I just wonder if that is money that they are going to continue to use as cat buy down on the remaining Galacticos. I cannot answer that for sure and may never be able to answer that for sure, but that's sort of what this feels like to me.
Let's go with this theory.
Yeah.
If you are right, The desire to get 100K for Jenna Nighswonger speaks to a level of desperation required. Needing 100K really badly. You basically gave up a starter for 100K. That feels like bad value.
Yeah, and exactly, like if the rationale really was like, well, we need to find somebody who might be willing to move. And if Nighswonger kind of ends up being the only one where you could get any kind of like real transfer fee for, that is desperation. Even if you might try to rationalize it by other means. So I am with you. Gotham is still going to be competitive, probably will still be a playoff team. But this is now the moment where like the overall design of their offseason up to now, Monday, January 27th, 2025, is starting to really perplex. Because before I could really talk myself into, it's like, yeah, good players are going out, but good players are coming in. You know, Amoros will figure out a good tactical balance to get everybody working. But here, this makes absolutely no sense to me unless it's a desperation move to get yourself more money to buy down your cap hit.
Let's just talk what the Gotham 11 looks like opening day. And we know that Rose Lavelle probably won't be healthy for the start of the season.
Let's also work from the assumption that Crystal Dunn probably isn't going to be there either.
Do you feel confident that she's not going to be there?
I feel more confident than less confident, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I just don't know where she goes.
Yeah, I mean, like the gossipy stuff is that she's deleted all evidence from her social media profiles that she is a Gotham player.
That Crystal Dunn signing is going to go down as one of the biggest calamities in terms of free agent signings in league history.
Yeah. Who gets assigned the blame for it is the open question at the moment. Opening day, starting 11, which won't include Lavelle because of her ankle surgery.
Injury, yeah.
Okay. I've got 10 players I think are probably going to be in it, and maybe we can figure out who the 11th would be.
Ann Katrin-Berger, great. Emily Sonnet, Tierna Davidson, maybe the best center back pairing in the league
among
right
them,
now.
Yeah.
Jess Carter and Mandy Freeman at fullback. I like that. Neely Martin and Jalen Howell in the double pivot.
Mm-hmm.
No longer will Jalen Howell be responsible for chasing the irresponsible Jenna Nighswonger's defensive assignments.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have some combination of Ella Stevens, Esther, Gabby Portillo, and...
Who would be your 11th player?
It's a great question.
Like who fills for Lavelle? You could drop a standard a little bit deeper, kind of have her function as a 10, maybe a / false 9. You play Stevens in the 9, Portillo on the right, so then you kind of have to figure out left wing. Kaiser, maybe? You could put Kaiser there.
Kaiser's the answer for me, and that's really relying on a player coming back from essentially a lost season.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think of that starting 11?
Last year, I thought they had incredible depth and they struggled for goals. This year, I think that they have significantly diminished depth and will probably still struggle for goals. But I think maybe defensively, they're slightly better.
That might be true.
Full season Jess Carter, addition of Jalen Howell. I could see them being defensively, and they were really hard to break down last year.
Yeah, Mandy Freeman is quite defensively minded as a fullback. Yeah.
She did great work in the playoffs against Trinity Rodman.
So then, yeah, it's a matter of can Stevens repeat and can Gabby Portillo step up into this environment week to week? And if that can happen, all right, you get yourself a playoff team there probably.
Yes, Gotham has fallen back from that pretty clear top 4 in my mind. I think that top 4 is more of a top 3 now.
The bench is, you got 4 rookies out of college. You've got Stella Niamekye coming out of Ghana at the age of 19, so we don't know what the hell she's going to be about. Jessica Silva on a 6-month deal. Dear old Taryn Torres still kicking around. That's it, man. Like, and Bruninha, like, that's the ball game. That's not the bench that they had last year.
No, it is not. And again, like, there is one could reasonably expect the bench to have fallen off a little bit. Just nature of the beast. They really were built to win last year. They got quite close. You got in penalties in a semi. I think that's just, that's sometimes how it goes. But the long range planning for 2025 now is you just sort of throw your hands up and wonder, maybe they're not done. Maybe there's a player to bring in.
Again, theoretically, they have the money to spend. I think a lot of international transfer action is coming in the next couple of weeks. That is something to keep an eye on. But as things stand right now, a dicey bench. You know, you're going to have to keep that 11 healthy and make sure Lavelle's back at 100% in order to keep on trucking.
San Diego, the Gurma transfer is official. The deal pays out over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So 360 something K over 3 years. San Diego has a windfall of money right now and a roster that I stare at and go, huh, I guess that's a professional team that they'll attempt to field next year.
And it's not quite the windfall that it might seem based on the sticker price, because we also found out that 1.1 million transfer fee is going to be paid out in 3 different sums over 3 years, so that San Diego can kind of bank some positive money toward their net transfer spend in future seasons. So instead of having 1.4 million to spend between this and the Jaden Shaw money, they probably have between 650 and 750,000 for 2025 to spend, which ain't nothing. It's just not the massive eye-watering cash grab that the sticker price would suggest. But they have money to spend, but they're rapidly filling their roster slots with every passing day.
That's right. And not necessarily well, I think, is the other thing. The Kenzadali move, I like as a player, but it's an age 33 midfielder coming to a significantly more athletic midfield league. I just don't know how much I think Kenzadali even has teammates around to support her in this system. The Favor Emmanuel move, I don't know anything about Lokomotiv Moscow, so I'll withhold judgment there, other than to say they are still short a central midfielder, and I don't think a player from Lokomotiv is the solve necessarily.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, from what data we could possibly gather comes to us from Y-Scout, the Russian Professional Women's League, it's a black hole for what that data actually can mean. And frankly, it's tough to even evaluate, at least for me, because I don't quite have the scout's eye. It'd be tough for me to even evaluate video as to what she's doing well, irrespective of the competition and the teammates she has around her in a league like that.
Yeah, I think as we get closer to the season and we start thinking about previews, I will hop on and watch some of her stuff and give you my 2 cents, which is worth about that.
She's also a Nigerian international who at the age of 22 hasn't really broken in there yet, which is kind of telling to me.
The early signs are not a player who's going to like shift the tide in your favor. I don't know if this moves the needle for San Diego, who still have legitimate hole at center midfield.
They need a central mid who can defend, and they need a striker if they are going to have any hope of competing in 2025. Frankly, they also probably need a center back, unless you're really convinced that Kennedy Wesley and Trinity Armstrong are going to be racing out the gate on day one. And also, like, their fullback depth is a little questionable. Like, Kristen McNabb is a veteran who did not have a good season. Hannah Lundqvist, Caitlin Torpy, and Perla Maroney all kind of were bad. And then we don't know what Quincy McMahon's going to be coming out of UCLA. Mm-hmm. It's just a roster just full of question marks. And every time they seem to want to try and answer one, just more questions arise. Boy, I'm really glad they got Didi Haracic as a backup keeper, I guess. You drop Cynthia Cabezas, who has already been loaned out, then you're looking at, 23 roster spots filled at the moment? You got 3 to go, and you probably need to make some upgrades at spots that have already been filled. So go out and spend that $700K.
I think the thing that doesn't make sense to me is Kenzadali, who is the one really good player they're bringing in here, is not anywhere near where you'd want that player on the age curve to build long-term with.
Yeah, and she only really managed to break into the French national side in the last couple of years because of injury.
Hard national team to break into, but you're right. This isn't like some sort of overwhelming win as a player signing is concerned. It's Delphine Cascarino shouldering an unbelievable amount of the responsibility for San Diego's success next season. You're a season removed from winning the Shield. And now San Diego, as I think about like preseason rankings, which we'll be doing not that far from now, it's really hard to imagine San Diego above any but a very short handful of teams. They may have had the most precipitous drop in quality of any team in the league.
Yeah, over the last week, they've probably added more players to their roster than any other team, but I don't feel like I have any more confidence in their prospects than I did 2 weeks ago.
No, not at all. Final thoughts on the Gurma and Shaw transfers as you've sat with it for a little bit?
No, only that I hope they spend that money well, and I hope they spend it soon.
Mm.
This is the only way that you make those deals advantageous for you, is to actually go and get a couple of impact pieces on the market. Have some hard looks in the mirror about why your two generational young players decided that they did not want to be on your team. And they decided that months before Casey Stoney was fired.
This Smellis of Ellis.
Jaden Shaw said some interesting things at Media Day that kind of implied that she felt in order to get herself ready for international caliber play, she needed to go play somewhere else. That the system in San Diego was actually maybe holding back her international development. That was the implication to her comments. And that's damning.
Which system? She ran two completely different systems last year.
My hunch is it's the Stony Ball defense first version of it.
Totally. And like she would have been, in her third system in 12 months if she'd stayed this season. And at age 20, when we were talking to Jane Campbell just like, I think you described her as just like the wily old man at the end of the bar who's just seen some shit.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No one wants 11 coaches in 6 years or whatever it has been for Jane Campbell. And Jaden Shaw was well on course for that. And it's possible Sean Nahas gets removed in North Carolina, but it's a little bleak in San Diego. I don't think any move that they have made yet convinces me that the tide is turning in the right direction. Bad news for Gotham, bad news for San Diego. Do we have good news for anybody? Let's talk about Houston.
I'm still perplexed beyond my wildest imaginings about the 2025 Houston Dash because they keep buying players. Danielle Colaprico and Messiah Bright, the latest additions, and also the young Maggie Graham, 22-year-old number 10 out of Duke, all coming into the side. This is like starting to like get pretty loaded with big names. And now it's a question of, does Fabrice Gautrat actually have like a functioning 11 here?
Big names versus big talent, I think, is how I would define this set of signings as opposed to like the Ryan Sheehan. Ryan and Sheehan were clear wins for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Those are both players who are net positives who are going to immediately bring quality into your side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually think that's true about Danielle Colaprico or Messiah Bright.
It should not be asked of Danielle Colaprico to be a linchpin number 6 anymore. She's 32. Her performance has eroded both on defense and in terms of her ball progression over the last couple of years. Houston doesn't need any more over 30 central mids, quite frankly.
That's the one. That's the one.
Like, it's a little silly. We were so excited about Sheehan coming in and getting that average age down in the center of the park, and Colaprico's bumping it up again. And then for Bright, it's probably good business for Houston. It's costing them $100K in intra-league transfer funds. That could go up to $150K given certain incentives getting hit. But she's only going to be around for a year unless they sign her to an extension. You're not necessarily tying up a bunch of payroll with her in the long term. But man, did Messiah Bright just have a lost season at Angel City. And I guess the question then becomes, is that on Becky Tweed or is that on Messiah Bright?
The thing that I always thought about Messiah Bright was I just don't love that she doesn't generate quite enough shots as a striker for me.
Mm-hmm.
And my scouting on her, and we were talking to Sky and Silves of Shea Butter about this a little bit during Media Day. My quick read is that the extra time she had in college to get her shot off has ceased to exist in the pros. And she was like a little finishing lucky in Orlando, and Orlando saw that they could probably get value out of that and shipped her on, like a smart analytics teams.
Yeah, her dribbling ability completely disappeared. You know, she went from a very solid net positive for a number 9 to a dismal net negative in that area of possession value. And that's concerning, especially if you want to play with someone with a little bit of fluidity, which Angel City needs in that part of the field.
If you want to put something on Becky Tweed, that's one that I'm happy to say that the collapse of Messiah Bright's dribbling has everything to do with the way in which Becky Tweed used attacking space. Orlando is just a better coach team with better spacing.
Yeah.
Messiah Bright often found herself with back to goal turning into Alyssa Thompson or having Alyssa Thompson turning into her, having Kennedy Fuller right on her. It was an ugly attack with bad spacing.
Yeah.
If Messiah Bright's dribbling rebounded this year in Houston, I would not be surprised by it. I'm not convinced, with some combination of the health and the lack of ability to get like great shots off with regularity, that Messiah Bright is a striker you want to build your team around.
What is Fabrice Gottschalk going to do with her? If we want to play the same exercise of speculative 11s that we just did with Gotham, for me, it's Yasmin Ryan, Michelle Alozia, and Messiah Bright across the front line, with Bright playing the 9.
I'm putting Amanda West in over Messiah Bright.
But who plays the 9 then? Because West is a wide player too.
No, exactly. Like, I'm probably playing a fluid front 3, just given the midfield that you have as well, and like the fullback depth you have. Or Diana Ordonez.
Well, she's on the SEI list right now, so we can't really consider her at the moment.
Yes, she falls into the Rose Lavelle category of won't probably be ready for day one.
That's correct.
If Messiah Bright is being used as a stopgap,
just to get Ordonez back on the field,
that's still not like a great solution, because Ordonez herself wasn't great last year. To the eye test, I would rather have 23-year-old Diana Ordonez over 25-year-old Messiah Bright in my team. I think Ordonez, just particularly with all of the talent improving around her, I think Ordonez is much better equipped to seize on the qualities of others, and interplay with a lot of the talent that's present. But yeah, I mean, Houston is significantly improved. I'm not ready to call this team a playoff team by any extent of the imagination, but they are not the abject horror show that they were last season.
They've got now multiple center backs to choose from because Katie Lynn's coming back from paid family leave. So now they've got Tarsiane, Paige Nielsen, Natalie Jacobs, Katie Lind to take 2 or 3 spots there. It's an outside back that I have still some remaining questions. Avery Patterson obviously is a player with a lot of potential, but wasn't very good last year. But was that her fault? Was it the team's fault? Well, I guess we're about to find out. Kristen Westphal, not good, or at the very least, not a net benefit. And she's 31. So that feels like a waste. Colaprico, eroding talent as she ages. And then a front line that, if Bright is in there, as you say, feels a little unbalanced. Maybe not impossible for Alozia, Ryan, and West to work as a fluid front 3, but like, got to see it working because this is Houston we're talking about, and they are on their 11th head coach in 6 years. So it's a team worth paying attention to, but I'm also like not super convinced of them. How about that Maggie Graham, though, who, as someone who almost 1,100 minutes against top 25 teams in college playing for Duke, pretty solid. 68% forward pass percentage as an attacking mid, and that includes 9 completed forward passes every 96 minutes.
I'm surprised by how undribbly she is, considering the position she's. I think of attacking mids as typically a little more dribbly. So I don't love that if I were scouting, I'd immediately have a way in which I'd target her and just like give her space and close down her passing lanes. It's so hard to even tell where Houston would value Maggie Graham. The draft at least told you what the team's assessment of the talent was and where they were valued. I don't know if Houston sees Maggie Graham as a first-round pick and someone they're like invested in, or as like a third-round pick.
She's also the only attacking midfielder that they have in their roster right now. But you drop one of those center backs, all of a sudden you need another midfielder. And so like Graham theoretically takes that place. But to your point, it's college, so it's hard to know how she can translate. Yes, she's not that dribbly, but she did a pretty good job at creating her own shot. 0.35 non-penalty XG per 96. Again, against the best teams. And again, she was playing for Duke in the ACC and went deep into the College Cup, so she got to face the best available competition. So there could be something there. But again, it's all speculation because it's fucking Houston.
I wouldn't pile her on the top of my list of rookies that I am most excited about.
Yeah.
But shot-getting 22-year-olds are interesting. And, like, especially if they shoot from good locations.
3.8 touches in the box per 96 for an attacking mid is solid.
I don't want to poo-poo this.
But at the same time, she was the 26th college player signed. So what was the demand for her market? Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Houston still doesn't know exactly the kind of football it's going to be playing next year, so it's hard for me to fit her into this team. We have lined up this speculative 11 as a 5-2-3. And I have no idea whether that's something Gotrot will humor.
No, completely.
So I don't know where Maggie Graham fits in, but...
Well, again, you drop a center back, you bring in Graham, and you can maybe play as a 4-2-3-1 with Graham at the top of the triangle. That's theoretically possible. And see if Yasmin Ryan's willing to play on the left rather than the right.
On the Bright transfer, and we'll move on from here. On the Bright transfer, I also feel like Angel City did pretty well cash-wise on this.
I think so too. Well, it's funny. It depends on how you look at it, right? Like, so they paid $130K in interleague transfer funds to get her a year ago, and now they're getting back 100 or up to 150K. So either, depending on how those incentives work out and that extra 50K, they're either taking a loss or they're maximizing their profit at about $20,000. Flipping Messiah Bright for at most $20,000, is that good business? I'm not saying yes or no. I'm actually curious.
This is where my intro for this show holds.
Mm-hmm.
I think Huclis Mangano really likes Messiah Bright.
Maybe so.
And brought her in for X amount of money. I read this as Huclis Mangano mildly overpaid for Bright to Angel City and may have again mildly overpaid for Bright to Houston, hoping that this square peg finds a square hole. She might. Messiah Bright is still at the age where I'm not going to say that she's the finished article or close the door. It would be hard to imagine a scenario that was less positive to play in than the attack of Angel City last year. But the attack of Houston last year would be one of those scenarios. And I don't necessarily think that they've dramatically improved. So if Bright hits, great. I just wouldn't be counting on that.
Angel City still needs to figure out how they want to spend that. But in the meantime, they have attempted to bolster their center back depth by bringing Alana Kennedy over from Manchester City. Cool. It's Megan Reed that she's replacing. So, theoretically, it's an upgrade because Kennedy has high-level international and high-level club experience, but Alana Kennedy is not a good player anymore.
Yeah, that's the one. She is a technically talented player who I think athletically will really struggle.
This is not the NWSL that she left behind several years ago.
That's right.
And she's 30 now, and she was really bad at the Olympics, and she's been pretty bad for Manchester City, at least defensively, as a center back.
Yeah, the things that she does well, winning headers, playing the ball forward, completing passes, those skills will translate in this league, but Angel City was a sieve defensively, and I don't think she helps that at all.
Yeah.
At all.
Sarah Gordon is not the most positionally disciplined center back in the world, but she makes up for it by using her speed to close down counterattacks and get stuck in a tackle. Kennedy is not going to do that. And You can't hope that Gordon can do it all by herself again. She's not getting any younger either.
The more I think about it, the best way that Angel City, given its current roster construction, can play is sitting super deep and using excellent passing right out to the flank and trying to counter. And really relying on the individual skills of Alyssa Thompson and Julie Dufour and Claire Emsley to provoke that attack. If we see Angel City come out in a high line at any point next season,
fucking forget it, man.
Yeah, just forget it. And by the way, that's a thing that they definitely attempted last season.
Yeah, I don't think Sam Lady, given his reputation, is going to necessarily do that, but we don't know yet.
The best case read on Alana Kennedy right now is if you sit deep and she has the ball, she will make good decisions with the ball. That's not nothing, but a lot of teams in the NWSL have one or two or more attacking options that will cause Alana Kennedy legitimate problems. Look, if Vanessa Gilles coming back in summer and Alana Kennedy becomes a bench piece,
fine.
This is a different story. Fine. My confidence that that's happening is not high.
They would just have to send her out on loan again because the loan expires. Lyon can't keep her past June 30th unless they worked out another deal, at which point they would just end up transferring her and get a nice chunk of change in the process. The club is on the record as saying that Gilles is coming back on June 30th. I know everybody is not convinced that it's happening, but if it's not happening, then that's on the club to explain how they fucked that up. right now, the club is planning on her coming back.
Yeah, if I'm Mark Parsons, 0% chance, unless the financials say I can't do it, that I'm not bringing back Vanessa Gilles immediately. And if I want to compete next year, I'm maybe terminating that loan and paying the fee associated with that. They don't have any money. That's not going to happen.
In the age of the new CBA, probably not the smartest thing to try and test Vanessa Gilles' loyalty by doing that.
Let's get on to the one that I've been avoiding.
So can I paint a picture for everybody? Eric and I were at NWSL Media Day here in Los Angeles on Thursday and Friday of last week. It was a fluid situation as to who was going to be there in terms of players. Every team is supposed to send 2 players. But by Thursday morning, we had a pretty good sense of who was going to be in attendance. The day begins about 9:30 a.m. Pacific. We go in. Eric's talking to his people. I'm talking to my people. All of a sudden, I get a DM from my editor saying, "Did you know that Dana Castellanos was there?" And I said, "No, they haven't told us anything." And he forwards me a social media post from Claire Watkins of Just Women's Sports saying, "Dana Castellanos is here." It turns out that Dana Castellanos, without having it be announced to anybody, was at NWSL Media Day, just in the little corner of the hotel ballroom, with a PR representative, of which team I will get to in a second. Whichever reporter happened to notice that she was there were the reporters that got to talk to her. And 4 hours later, Sandra Herrera at CBS Sports breaks the news that Dana Castellanos is transferring to the Portland Thorns. And we're all like, what the fuck is going on? And before that, what was allowed to be dribbled out by the Thorns PR flack, talking to the 2 reporters who happened to notice Castellanos in the corner, was that she was leaving, that her contract was being bought out, and that she was going to a West Coast team. And the language that came in from Bay FC, basically at the same time, was mutual agreement to have her transition to free agency.
Conscious uncoupling.
It's saying we paid $1 million to buy out her contract in the most insane way possible.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Dana Castellanos just got a bunch of fuck off money and fucked off.
And now has signed a new 2-year deal plus a mutual option to play for the Portland Thorns, whose strategic advisor in the front office just happens to be Lucy Rushton, the former GM of Bay FC, who signed her in the first place.
Like I said up top, GMs with player crushes keeping their crushes around.
Every team gets 1 buyout contract per calendar year, and that buyout money doesn't count toward the salary cap. So Bay dipped into its 6th Street piggy bank and threw cash to Jen Beatty to go retire at the end of 2024, and then took a bunch more money and threw it at Dana Castellanos to go away in 2025. It's just money. They don't care. They have just gotten rid of the 2 biggest albatrosses of contracts that were dangling around their necks. I say that's good business.
Yeah, honestly, props, Bay. These were the things that we were asking all offseason about how they'd get out from under, particularly Castellanos.
Yeah. It turns out you just pay the money.
No, they showed Dana the money.
Yep.
And then the door. And I think that that is really good work.
It's huge. I mean, they still don't have a lot of cap space to play with, but they have a fuck ton more cap space to play with than they did a week ago.
Several $100,000 unlocked, which is great. As for Portland, who still don't have a backline that I would trust day one, or midfield depth beyond Sam Coffey, really, this is a sort of head scratcher. I think that the best interpretation of this is if Portland was able to get Castellanos for a really reasonable sum of money because she'd just been paid to fuck off, this is potentially someone who can slot in on the wing and whose negative impact you can potentially limit. I asked Evan a question because I was curious and we sort of dug through the database. The question was, what are the biggest player movements that have resulted in a player going from a net negative to a net positive in their new surrounds? Dana Castellanos has a spotty statistical profile and at age 26 is not someone I particularly expect to reinvent the wheel or reinvent themselves well. But we wanted to take a look at this.
For attackers who had played at least 500 minutes in 2 consecutive seasons and switched teams between those seasons. That's the total pool. Then we wanted to narrow it down to players who were net negative that first year and were net positive in the following year. And this is all by net G plus, above positional average per 96 minutes, ASAs. Fancy possession value statistic, all in one metric. We wanted to see which players were net negative in their first year, but then played at least 1,000 minutes in their second year and also were net positives in net G plus to show that they're getting a lot of playing time in that second year and they're also offering real production. So that grouping of players that fits that description narrows down all of a sudden to 6 players. And this is since 2016.
From 56 to 6.
In other words, it is not the likeliest scenario that Castellanos is going to turn it around.
It has not happened very often in the past. CeCe Kaiser's done it. Sidney Leroux's done it. I think Castellanos is a flyer for Portland, one that doesn't fill obvious needs that the team currently has. So I'm a little skeptical about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's play the same game, the speculative 11 game. I don't see a place for her in the 11. And if you make a place for her in the 11, you kind of have to play her almost like as a right winger rather than a number 10.
She has to play on a wing, which I actually think, given her profile, is probably not the worst thing that could happen. She is like a neutral shooter of the ball and decent at receiving the ball.
Yeah.
Those are 2 qualities she carries with her here.
And the more that you prevent Dana Castellanos from being exposed on defense in central areas of the pitch, the better. I don't hate that, but Hina Sugita played a season at right wing and did it pretty darn well. Is Castellanos a better option than Hina there? I don't know.
So let's do this starting 11. Mackenzie Arnold, probably the day one starter. Hyatt and Obeys is our best guess at center back. Ortayani, Reina Reyes, and Marie Mueller probably locked on at fullbacks. Coffey nailed on to start. Jesse Fleming possibly to rebound in central midfield. And then I think you have questions about whether Hina is being played in the center of the park or whether Olivia Moultrie is there. But that's sort of the pool that you're looking at. And then Soph Smith and Morgan Weaver. I think Dana Castellanos probably isn't a starter in this team.
I don't think so either. I think Hina is the right winger on day one. Maybe we should say Hina probably should be the right winger on day one.
With the talent on hand, to maximize the talent available on the field, it kind of looks like Portland's playing more of a 4 diamond 4-2, potentially.
Maybe.
Like, that would maximize at least the talent there because Moultrie doesn't have the pace to play out wide. We talked about Caroline being a good fit. This is not the winger fit that I think anybody was thinking about. Portland has some holes, and it has 2 Ferraris up top. It's an incomplete team.
It theoretically has players to fill every position in the 11 at the moment, but it's not the best players that you would want. And talk about Hina on the wing. Like, Hina played right wing in 2023 because they just had too many good central midfielders and they were trying to get them on the field all at the same time. So, like,
no longer a problem.
It's still not necessarily optimizing Hina either. And then there's a question of, like, how do you balance Coffey, Fleming, and Hina all at the same time, and Moultrie? That's a whole other conversation. But it's a bunch of parts that, like, Castellanos is not the final piece that's bringing it all together here.
I would say that the problems that Portland went into the offseason with, the defense, have not been solved.
Well, they did just pick up Jaden Perry out of UCLA, another center back.
That's fair. College center back whose numbers don't, like, jump off the spreadsheet at you.
A great ball-playing center back. Didn't necessarily show much as a defensive center back.
Yeah, which would be right in line with Portland's devaluing of defensive center backs. So she'll be in good company. In some ways, the arc of this team is not a lot different than the arc of what's happened to San Diego from 2023 on.
Mm-hmm.
San Diego's has been a much more committed demise. Portland went from having the best team in the league in 2023, pretty clearly, to a team that now is kind of thin everywhere but attack. Yeah. And is really reliant on Weaver and Smith.
They spent a lot of money on payroll last year. We don't know what kind of money they have to spend on payroll this year.
That's
so,
right.
Like, how do they reinforce a lot of holes that still need plugging.
They're a team with a lot of questions.
Speaking of a team that sort of maybe plugged a hole, North Carolina went out and got a Japanese central midfielder to replace their other Japanese central midfielder, Shinobi Koyama, who is 20 years old and was most recently playing for a not very good team in Sweden. Signed her to a 3-year deal. You could see maybe a double pivot with her and Denise O'Sullivan plugging those gaps, but it doesn't solve the how do we balance Jaden Shaw, Ashley Sanchez question, and also we don't know how good Shinomi Koyama is going to be in this environment. So, cool.
Yeah, another one that I just sort of do the meh arms and say I have no idea whether this is a hit, and if you're relying on a 20-year-old coming over from Sweden to be a day one starter, that's probably not the best sign. So I expect the center of the park, which was kind of a soft underbelly for North Carolina last year, to continue to be kind of a soft underbelly.
Because right now, their only other option, if they don't think Koyama's ready to start, is to start Riley Jackson there, who had a very nice 443 minutes in the NWSL last season.
It's a perfect way to frame it.
Yeah, but she is 19 years old, and she hasn't done it across an entire campaign yet.
Claire Hutton, we didn't know Claire Hutton was Claire Hutton at this point last year. And if Riley Jackson, who has more tape on her than Claire Hutton and was quite productive, steps in and becomes Claire Hutton 2.0, great. North Carolina's in really good shape.
Yep.
If Koyama does the same thing, great.
Yep.
But I just have low confidence in that happening.
But Ashley Sanchez and Jaden Shaw both think that the system's going to work, even though they don't know how it's going to work yet. They report to preseason this week, so it's all new. I think Ashley Sanchez probably needs to be on the right wing in order for any of this to be logical. Don't you think?
I think they need to be playing, probably, given the talent on hand, a 4-2-2-2 to get the most out of Sean Sanchez.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah, I know they're not going to do that. Sanchez is a good dribbler and loves a dribble.
And is very comfortable playing wide on the right.
I think you're probably right that's...
Yeah, you play Monica as a false nine, you move Lucy out to the left, you push Sanchez higher and wider, and then you have Shaw underneath at the top of the triangle. That feels like it has potential. And honestly, this is why I feel like it's making the best of a lot of middling options, is like, you have to build your team around your best player. And guess what? Jaden Shaw's your best player. So don't try and shoehorn her into something that she's not going to be comfortable doing.
Yeah, I think I'm probably not starting Matsukubo. I'm probably starting Hannah Betfort or Brianna Pinto instead. But just Matsukubo, like, that's a player that you want to bring on throughout the season.
I don't know, man. They've been investing a lot of money in her. I don't know.
If she's ready to make that jump, maybe, but like her numbers from last year are Dana Castellanos bad.
Yeah. Well, we put Betfort in instead of Monica, but I still think the rest of the structure should remain the same.
Yeah, again, that's not how, if I were blue skying this team, I'd set them out, but I think that you're probably right that that's the closest thing to what Sean Nahas will do. If we're predicting like what will happen next, I think you're probably right on the money there.
Sean Nahas playing a box midfield and going really direct is just so far out of the realm that I can't even consider it.
Totally. Like, that would be a leopard changing his stripes. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And while there are so many interesting pieces in North Carolina, a lot of them don't quite fit for me inside the system. I think you and I both think Sean Nahas is going to play.
You want to touch on anything with Chelsea and Arsenal over the weekend? Gurma was unveiled in front of a new record crowd for Chelsea women at Stamford Bridge, which was very cool.
That game was very tough watch.
Yeah. The field tilt, I think, was 52-48 or even 51-49. And then, like, XG per shot was like 0.13 to 0.12 in Arsenal's favor. So this was very finely poised and just came down to one team having some bad finishing luck. Even the quality chance split was 4-4. Like, there really was no area of advantage, even if it seemed like in the second half, Chelsea was putting their foot on the ball and having more control of the game overall. Until McCabe's red card,
The game is decided by a Katie McCabe red card. So, Jenna, get ready. You may need to play this weekend.
Oh, she's definitely playing this weekend.
Yeah.
Especially considering that Caitlin Ford might be out for a considerable amount of time.
And Guro Reiten, finished the subsequent red-carded penalty.
Macario had some good chances early in the game. I thought she's been looking quite tasty in these recent starts of hers, which is very encouraging for the She Believes Cup in a month.
Yeah, this game just felt like Chelsea already has a stranglehold on winning the league, and this, furthers that without them ever having been like overwhelmingly dominant against other top sides. They are presumptive champions for the 72nd time.
Yeah.
At this point.
Without question. A lot of gnashing of teeth about like the state of Arsenal, and sure, I guess it's just that they're not playing like a team that is in shambles.
Yeah, not at all.
They're still performing decently well and having some bad luck, and Renee Slegers is in the middle of a tactical and culture shift. So I guess she's just going to have to figure that out. Although, interestingly, this is the toughest game that she's been a manager for up to this point, at least in the league. And it's an incomplete, I think, still. She got some new manager bounce that got her the job, and, probably played Chelsea to a stalemate and then had some bad luck, and her most red-ass player go full red-ass on the ref. So, them's the breaks. Yep, it's Chelsea's league to lose now.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea is 7 points clear with half the season gone.
Yeah, Manchester City playing pretty badly against tough opposition, although they got a win in Caroline's debut against Aston Villa. And Arsenal dropping points here. Yeah, hard to see how anybody manages to overtake Chelsea. But then again, Emma Hayes said the title was gone at the beginning of April last year. So who knows?
Yeah, that is not the narrative of this season.
No.
I think everybody else probably does feel like the title is gone, given what Chelsea have done this season.
No.
There are teams with equivalently good defenses or staunch defenses. There is no one who does that and pairs it with an attack quite like Chelsea.
And Sam Kerr's going to be back soon, so
yeah,
good luck.
Just in case you were like wondering what it would be like to add another weapon to your arsenal. Sorry, Arsenal. Mm-hmm. Chelsea's about to do that.
I just don't think Jenna Nighswonger's quite the equivalent.
Don't bring a Jenna Nighswonger to a Sam Kerr fight. Bring a Sam Kerr to a Sam Kerr fight.
That is the week that was. We will speak to everybody on Patreon on Thursday. If you are still not a member of Patreon, fire up patreon.com/xowngoals. That's the letter X own goals. It's a link in the show notes. $6 a month or $60 a year gets you 4 bonus episodes every single month, as well as access to our Discord server and our semi-regular in-game YouTube live streams. We are going to be offering also some bonus content probably coming out of the American Soccer Insights Conference in Houston that we will be going to this weekend, which we're very excited to check out. We are the closing event on Saturday night. We're going to be doing a live episode, which is what next Tuesday's main feed is going to be. So you can look forward to that as well. Follow us on all social media channels at XOwnGoals. Email us at expectedowngoals@gmail.com and do all the things. Rate us 5 stars, drop a review, follow us, tell all your friends about us, and we will speak to you soon.
Bye.